depression, yeah, and I think there was one more, an alcohol addiction, yeah. So we can supply you with those recordings also, yeah. So yeah, so any questions? You are also free to ask your questions anonymously by sending it directly to Dr. Sheryl or to me, and we'll read it out without taking your name. But we can now just so that there's so many of us, we can put the question on the chat, or
Somebody had raised their hands. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
or raise your hand using the Zoom reaction. Yeah, who's the person? Yes, any questions? Go ahead.
Yes, Mahesh.
Yes,
Ma'am,
Mahesh.
thank you so much for the awesome class, ma'am. I learned certain things. But when it comes to practical, sometimes it might be challenging. Most of the people kind of accusation, they said me I'm a person of short temper. Of course, I to know certain extent, but what happens, I'm showing on the things. For example, if the things are around us, I'm showing on that things because I can't show that on the person. But I'm trying my best to control, but sometimes it go beyond because keep on saying and repeating, it triggers me a lot. The class that I have learned from here, okay, I learned something, better communication, have patience, leave less, all those things I have. What if the other person is provoking me? Uh, Sometimes we are unable, which happens within the family, coming back and if you're seeing that person also, it might trigger back again. So how do we handle that? This is where I'm
So it
confused, ma'am.
depends on if we have to look at, because if it's a family member, for example, and that person is triggering us constantly, we have to choose to see that, how important is that relationship for me. If it's a relationship that I can do without, it's a distant cousin, and whenever I meet that cousin at a wedding, that person constantly wants to pull my leg and irritate me, and that's going to get me angry, I can choose to not interact with that person. But suppose it's a family member in your home. It's a spouse, it's a child, it's a mother, it's an in law, it's a brother, it's a brother in law. It's a relationship that you cannot get away with. So you have to sit down when you're calmer, not when you're angry, when you're calmer, and have a conversation with that person to find out why that person is behaving in this particular manner with you. That's where we're talking about the communication skills. When you tell that person, I am getting angry, how can we improve our relationship, and then take it from there. It's not going to be like a one day thing where it is easy, but if you are able to, like you said, everybody says that you're a short tempered person, that means you do tend to react more than you are responding. So if you're able to practice and find out the root cause, why is it that I am getting angry repeatedly, many a times what happens is it's a learned behavior. I want something to be done. I am saying the same thing very nicely to you. You're not listening to me. So I will raise my voice and shout at you, especially if you are somebody who is a child or my child or somebody who is my subordinate. The moment I raise my voice and shout, you're going to listen and do it fast. So I get a feedback, acha, if I raise my voice and shout at you, the work is getting done. And over a period of time, it becomes a pattern for us that anything we want to get done, we're screaming and shouting. So if I'm able to recognize that what is it that is making me behave this way, then bringing about the change. It will require some time and work, sir. But I'm sure that since you're acknowledging that that's a problem, it will happen.
Right. Short question. Sorry for disturbance. One more thing. Ma'am, being a short temper is the right thing or wrong? Because I have read it's better to express rather than control. Control might damage more than expressing. That's what I have read somewhere in an article. Is it right or wrong?
So expressing the way you're expressing is very important. When we are saying short temper, that means you're expressing what you want to say in an ineffective manner. What is our idea of expressing or communication? If I want to communicate something with to you, you should be able to understand it. You should be able to reciprocate and follow what I am saying. But if I am going to get angry and communicate the same thing, you are not going to listen to me, or you will listen to me only temporarily because I want to get away of the situation. So being short tempered is not a good thing. Being expressive is a good thing. You must learn to express. That's why I said about assertive expression. Learn to express the thing in a right manner rather than in an angry manner.
Right. Thank
Yeah,
you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
yeah. Sandra, please go ahead.
Uh, yes, ma'am. First of all, thank you for an insightful session. And I have two questions. First one, like you mentioned, ma'am, certain situations come up when we realize that if we raise our voice, then the work gets done. That the particular person can only understand if we raise our voice or talk in a way, and that doesn't leave us with a pleasant feeling. So, how to deal with that? And second question is, at times it happens, even though prayerfully we are in the waiting season, so that frustration is there within, and that causes the anger on trivial matters. So these two things, how to handle it, ma'am?
The first thing that you said, like I correctly said, now you have to understand, are you looking at something for its short-term benefit or are you looking at it for the long-term benefit? Now, usually when we are talking about screaming and getting something done, like I told you, it's either with our children or it's when we are disciplining somebody who's subordinate at us. You will not be shouting and screaming at your mother, or you won't be shouting and screaming at your boss, right? So if that person is responding to you screaming and shouting, it's only because the person wants to avoid an uncomfortable situation. It's a very short term response. Till you are there, that person is going to listen. The moment you step away, the person will do what he or she wants. So if you want it to be a long term thing, you will have to change the way you're communicating that thing. So that is regarding the first question. The second question is about a waiting period. So like I asked you when I was talking about it, right? I am expressing irritability and anger, but I am have to look back and say what is the reason that I am angry. You said waiting for something, or if I am kind of having some desire and I'm praying about and I'm waiting for it, it's not happening, and then I'm getting angry at everybody else around it, is when, like I said, being mindful about writing down your thoughts, trying to change and reframe the situation, using relaxation techniques so that one situation doesn't lead you to respond to another situation in a different way.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Philip, please go ahead.
Uh,
Yeah.
Thank you. It was a very interesting session. Uh, I'm just sharing my experience. I'm a life transformation coach as well, but I'm just sharing whatever has been my experience, because this is a very important topic. Actually, you touched. It cuts across every religion, every human, even atheists or everybody. I have traveled much, worked in
Yeah.
Africa
Dr.
and other
Philip, please
places.
make it quick.
My
Make it quick. Yeah. Make it
Yeah.
quick. Yeah.
So all these solutions, it's only for a temporary period. With all these things, throw cold water on your face or count till 10 or whatever. Uh, any situation can trigger you. It just depends upon your trigger, your mood, and so many other things. Even with all kinds of maturity, if I'm in Rome and I'm going to the airport and I'm calling a cab and he doesn't turn up and he spoils my flight, I will be angry, and any amount of reasoning will not help. Or if there is a rape victim, any amount of reasoning, they will have a different. So I'm just looking at other scenarios. My only submission is that uh, I was told that this is a secular thing, but my answer is in Christ. If you love God, it helps you in every situation. So the closer you draw to God, whatever may happen in your life, you are able to answer every situation which can, there could be total injustice in your life, but coming close to God has helped me to overcome my anger. I've been cheated. There was one person who cheated me of 25 lakh rupees. Any amount of thing doesn't help, but drawing close to God when I read the Bible. So it's also for secular people who have not understood.
Right.
Coming to Christ has given me all my answers. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
when we were talking about examples, right, and uh, whether it's the short term of, washing your face or moving away or counting, these are definitely short term. That's what they're called short term. What do I do in that situation when I'm angry? But the other things that we spoke about practicing better communication, practicing on reframing a situation, practicing about changing my thoughts and perceptions is not going to be a one-time thing. It's exactly what Dr. Philip was talking about, is going to the root of the problem and trying to understand and change it. It only will come with practice. It will not come with me just telling you this today, right? Each one of us will have to practice it. So the example that, okay, I'm at Rome and my cab has not come. Now, if I'm going to reframe the situation and say, what can I do about it? I have to accept the situation. The cab is not there. If me getting angry and fuming and having a tantrum on the middle of the road in Rome, is it going to help me? No. The police may just come and haul me into the jail in an European country thinking I'm creating a nuisance. So I choose to say and accept the situation that this is what it is. I'm not going to blame the situation. The cab driver has not come. Can I find a solution to the problem? But I'll only be able to do that if I calm myself down with some breathing, and then I'll be able to fix or change my the impulsive and assertive and the fight and flight response. I'm missing, the cab's not come, I'm going to miss my flight. I'm going to panic and I'm going to get angry. Can I calm myself? Can I use a breathing technique? Can I just splash water and then focus on what can I find the solutions? Now I'm going to reframe the situation. Now I'm going to change my response. I'm going to respond and not react. I'll see whether there's a bus coming or not. So when we apply both of these things together, we'll be able to find solutions.
Okay, there's a question on direct chat, which means it's anonymous. It says, what if a person doesn't respect boundaries, no matter how many times or in how many different ways? Even assertive communication, that's in bracket, we have expressed, leading us to anger.
So if a person is not respecting your boundaries and that person is evoking negative emotions in you, then it's time to cut off that relationship. It's very, very important to understand that all relationships are not meant to last forever. I know it's a completely different tangent that we're talking about. Sometimes we're talking about somebody who is emotionally abusive to you or physically abusive to you, or there is domestic abuse happening. And you have tried all these ways of anger, you've tried laying the boundary, done everything, but that person is not going to learn. It's important then to step away from that relationship. So it's like the aeroplane rule, right? You have to put your oxygen mask before you can help the child with you. The same way, if that relationship is toxic, you have to learn to end that relationship.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think we want something dramatic to happen sometimes. We wait for something that can, like some violent behavior, but even emotional abuse and the nagging also can have so much effect on your mental health and your physical well-being. So every person deserves to live a life of peace and dignity. Isn't that important? Yeah.
Yes, Nancy.
Yes, Nancy. Nancy, go ahead. Yeah.
A very common tendency is to repress our anger, because we have been brought up also, particularly I would say women, we have to be pleasant all the time, we have to give in, and the tendency is to repress. We somatize our emotions, and then it comes out in many disease forms. Now,
Very, very right.
we are not taught our educational system does not teach us how to handle emotions. And I think, Dr. Sheryl, since you are community, you're working as a doctor and as working for the community in general, if we could work out kind of modules, something that we could use in our schools would be very helpful. This is just a suggestion. But how can we help people who repress to respond, not react, respond, and not repress? We need to be educated in that.
A very nice thought, Nancy, because you're correcting said it. We have taught about everything but emotional hygiene. So we do a lot of sessions with school, like we teach children how to brush their teeth, to take a bath, but we don't teach them how to handle emotions. The only thing that we tell them is not to cry.
Right.
Or we tell them you can't feel angry, you can't feel jealous that your friend has got a better car than you, or you can't be jealous because of friends. But that's not right, right? I can feel envy. And we teach right from a younger age to just suppress these emotions. And rightfully said, women are taught that more. What happens, and this is a very valid point, is what happens, women then internalize their emotions and men learn to externalize their emotions. So the rage that happens or anger that happens in men is usually verbal or physical, or car and drugs and alcohol, and in women it's more of depression, anxiety, body aches and pains. So being mindful of that, making note of your emotions, learning to communicate assertively will help in a long way.
Right. There's a question in the direct chat again. How to respond when I'm at the receiving end of anger? How to calm the other person without agreeing to their views?
So if you are in the receiving end of the anger, do not try to engage with that person at that point in time. Because if that person is angry, he is not ready, he or she is not open to listening to your viewpoint. So don't engage more and try to calm that person down. At this point of time, you need to eat. If the person is very angry and you feel that there is a harm to you, just try to maintain a physical distance from that person. Move away. If the person is not moving away, you move away. And or the other thing is, you don't keep on talking and again justify your actions. When the person is calmer and better, maybe 2 3 days down the line, maybe a week later, talk to that person about how you felt when that person was responding this way, not how he did it or you did this to me. No, I was very scared that day when you were screaming. I was feeling really hurt that day when you were screaming. So again, using those I statements.
Right, right. Joseph Lobo has raised his hand, but his audio is not connected. I'll message him to put it on the chat. But there is a question, follow-up question to the previous answer that you gave. That what if it's not possible to cut off from that person because that person is your own, maybe immediate family. So, what do you do in that case?
In a difficult situation like that, where if you have tried everything that's possible, then it's time to kind of maybe take help from an external neutral person. It could be a pastor in your church, it could be a mental health professional, it could be a counselor, where a third person is mediating conversations between the two of you. And a lot of times, especially in relationships, we feel a little ashamed to take help because the person who's angry is going to say, oh, this is something that you and I can resolve. Why do you need to get a third person into this? It's exactly when you need to get a neutral person who's not invested or biased towards any of you and will help to mediate that conversation. And
Right.
counseling really helps in these kind of conflicts.
Uh, okay. Any other question, friends? Go ahead and ask. Please raise your hand or put it on the chat if you have any. This is an opportunity. If you are struggling with anger, then please go ahead and ask. And if you know somebody in your own family or friends, you could get some insight. Yeah. Yeah.
So somebody was asking if expression of anger on material things is a problem. Yes, if you're going to pick up something and throw it on the wall or break something because you're angry, it's not a healthy way of managing your anger. You need to kind of change that again because that is your reaction. You're not responding to the situation. So try to change it.
Right. Right. Um, yeah. Okay, doctor, how to handle road rage? Somebody is asking how to handle a road rage situation. It's
Drive away. Don't
just
lower
drive
your
away.
don't lower your car and try to engage with that person or say, okay, let me calm that person down. No, the person is in a different frame of mind. You have to, there's something known as
See,
harm reduction also, right? You have to understand that in certain situations we don't have to fight all battles and all wars. We have to choose our battles very wisely. So in a situation like a road rage where there is danger to life, you have to use your flight response, not your fight response. Move away from that situation.
correct. what about cumulative anger that comes out of bitterness?
So here you really have to work on the root cause of the bitterness, right? And it's like, suppose I always say, like, when it's either whether it is Christmas, whether it's Diwali, whether it's any other festival, we have this custom of cleaning up our houses, right? Decluttering. So maybe we can use that as a methodology for our brain to kind of go through all the experiences that are cumulatively there. For example, writing it down, or even talking about it to somebody, where you start processing things from maybe your childhood and everything. And when I process it, I have to learn to process and let go. For an example, now somebody, I think somebody was speaking about a rape victim, or suppose you have been a victim of sexual abuse or molestation, and it could be a family member, extremely bitter about it, and rightfully so, and you're not able to let go of that bitterness. And we must remember that certain experiences which are traumatic to us, we are not going to be able to forget. So if you are going to constantly focus, oh, I want to forget that emotion, it's not going to happen. You have to work on processing it, learning to let go, and forgiving that person for what happened to you. I think there's a very famous saying by Buddha is, when you're angry about something, is you are drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. Right? So then you're
Right,
holding
right.
on to bitterness, it's like that. So you have to learn to process it. Now, for example, if I get angry and slap,
Audio, yeah, we can't hear you.
1 second, I just,
Yeah, now we can hear you.
I just, yeah. So, like I said, if somebody slaps me and the person has never done something like that before, over a period of time, I will not forget what I wore, what he or she wore, and how it felt when that person slapped me. I will not forget that incident, but I will learn my emotions, the intensity will gradually reduce over a period of time if I'm able to process that. So when you are talking about bitterness, go and figure out all the instances which cause the bitterness and work through them over a period of time. Learn to let go of that situations.
Right. Uh, I think there's a question on direct chat. What are best choices to vent out our anger as a subordinate if we are hurt by our boss?
So, venting out your anger is not going to help you, right? Because that's the whole idea. You can't vent out the anger. What you need to do is then communicate assertively to your boss. That means that maybe writing down a note or a message or an email without sending it. So, first you can write down everything what you feel, because when you're talking to somebody, we're not able to regulate it, right? Like I'll get angry, and the more you're looking at me, the more I'm going to get angry and my voice will be raised. But if I'm writing it down, then I'm able to cut paste and take away the emotions associated with that and state the facts, that these are the facts and this is the facts that made me upset. So try to communicate with your boss, maybe through an email, through a WhatsApp chat, or when you're calmer, having a conversation, maybe come, let's go ask your boss over for coffee, and talk to them in an informal setting about how you are feeling with that person's behavior. And sometimes the person may not change, then it's time to look for a new job. Or sometimes they're not able to look for a new job. Everybody cannot find a job easily. Learn to accept, like how during COVID we wore a mask. Why? Because I was not able to go and kill the COVID virus. I wore a mask to protect myself. So I form an invisible boundary around me so that this negative person's impact, he doesn't impact me as much.
Right, right. Uh, Ma'am, how do we change our reaction to anger as we discussed? We have to change our reaction if the object near us is the victim of anger. In the chat, I'm not really understanding. I'll just read it again. Ma'am, how do we change our reaction to anger as we discussed, we have to change our reaction if the object near us is the victim of anger. Okay, basically asking how do we change our reaction to anger?
So that's what we spoke about throughout
Yeah,
the session, how to change the anger. And we don't change, if your purpose of changing the anger is so that the person opposite you should not be the victim, you're not going to want to bring about the change, because then you're changing for somebody else. Oh, my family is upset that I am angry, so I need to change. No, anger is as an emotion is bad for me if it's in the extreme. So I'm changing that emotion for myself. Automatically the change will be more impactful and long lasting.
right. Okay, any other question? Please go ahead, raise your hand, put it in the chat section quickly. You could also put it on the direct chat to me and it will be considered anonymous, me or Dr. Sheryl. Dr. Sheryl, what about this kind of righteous anger which is against injustice? You feel whether it's in the society parking lot, somebody's taking your parking, or any kind of thing that you feel this person is being corrupt, and there's this anger that's building up. So how does one deal with that in a systematic?
Taking small steps, right? If you're somebody who's, all of us are get riled up about injustice, all of us get riled up about it, and then we're able to forget and move on with our own personal things. There's no right and wrong here. Now, suppose we are able to, if I am somebody who gets very, very impacted by injustice happening around me, and instead of kind of complaining or blaming the situation, can I take some small steps where I will help in bringing about the change? For example, can I volunteer in my local welfare association in a small way to bring about a change in my local community? So I am contributing in some way to take care of the injustice. That helps a lot. Community helps a lot. So having a foundation, whether it's faith, whether it's an institution, whether it is your friend circle, these kind of grounding things also help you to handle the injustice anger.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Thank you. Any other question, anyone? Yeah, right. How does anger as an influence play a role upon a person, whether it's somebody a child has seen growing up in the angry home, or movies, or anything, any exposure to violence? So how does that affect a person?
It definitely will impact, because it's something like conditioning, no? Anything. Now, I love Dairy Milk Silk Ice chocolate. Now, I'm just telling you Dairy Milk Silk, and here my mouth's watering. There is actual salivation, right? Why? Because my brain remembers the taste and brings about physical change. Because I know how it tastes. In the same way about negative emotions. So if I'm growing up in an environment where everybody is responding to situations with anger, that's what I'm going to learn. It becomes a learned behavior. And over a period, it's like practicing the tables. If I'm practicing 2 multiplied by 3 is 7, and I keep on practicing that again and again and again, unless you correct me and I say, oh, no, no, doctor, 2 threes are 6. I have to practice 2 threes are 6 more times than I practice 2 threes are 7 if I want to change that. So a lot of influence from our environment and conditioning makes us angry. We need to be aware and practice changing it. When we are playing that, that's why we see a lot of an increase in violence nowadays, right? Why do we see increase in violence? Because if everybody is going to play a game where you're shooting another person, you're seeing blood. I mean, during my times in medical college, when the first year of medical college, when we would have to prick our fingers for blood to do tests, half the class would faint, right? Because so many people are not used to seeing blood. But now, right from a 4-year-old to an 18-year-old, they're not really put off by blood as much, because when they're killing each other on a game, there is so much of blood and violence happening that you become desensitized to violence. So you get desensitized to anger. Your brain circuits get used to. So these are the influences which we will have to work on reducing.
Right. Yeah. So, any questions, friends, before we close? 10:30 is our deadline to end this session. Just put it on the chat quickly if
I
you
think
have.
somebody wanted the link to watch the previous session. So if you could just put in on the
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, you could. Yeah, we'll put it on our WhatsApp group, which is there, and we could send it to you. But it's also present on our NMBF Coffee Chats YouTube channel. If you can just type NMBF and Dr. Sheryl on YouTube search link, you will get it. Yeah, but anyway, we'll be putting it in that group soon. So, Dr. Sheryl, once again, just maybe people sometimes are deeply hurt in the family itself regarding something that somebody said when they were a kid, or the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law. So, how do you process that? Well, I mean, you must have said it, I think, in a different way, but if you can just tell that, because a lot of people are hurt in a personal way. Yeah.
Right. So I said that if you're going to focus on forgetting what that person said, so you have to change your perspective, right? You cannot forget what that person said. You have to learn to forgive that person,
Right.
which is the most difficult task, because what you're doing is when you're learning that emotion of forgiving that person, in the bargain, you're actually helping yourself. That I choose to let go of this emotion of anger or bitterness I'm feeling, not that is going to cause any change in the other person. The other person may continue to behave in the same way with you. But you are choosing to let go of that emotion. And like I said, it requires practice. It won't come easily. It's something that you have to constantly practice.
Right. Right. Okay, so I think with that we will close the session. Thank you so much, Dr. Sheryl. We truly, thoroughly enjoyed the session, and we're sure that this will be a blessing for many who see it on YouTube, because a lot of us struggle with hurt and anger. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experience.
Thank you for
This,
having me. God bless everybody. Good night.
yeah, thank you. Bye. Good night, everyone. Thank you. Bye.